Justin.
What's up, man?
Guess what I forgot to do? I need a reverse record scratch rewind button, like a noise for rewinding, because I forgot to do this. We're starting over. Hold on. Here we go.
This is the No Swear Gamer from YouTube and the Atari 7800 Game by Game podcast, and you are listening to the podcasting pride of the Smoky Mountains, the Two Dudes in a NES, with your hosts, Dude Michael and Dude Justin.
All right. Hey, Justin.
That feels much better. What's up, man?
Thank you. I like the that you gave me. It was real. That was not some people may be thinking every now, we do this often where I forget to do the intro. Some people may be thinking, oh, this is just a bit that they do. But no, they listen to that and they know that was real. That was a real
It was a real live
Anyway.
To peek behind the curtain, we've just been delayed for a while. My fault for the most part, because my computer was just really not wanting to boot up, and that was just like just one more steel toe kick to the chin of let's restart things.
Yeah, well, you know who was good about getting their computer updated and ready for the pod? Not me. Our guest, Aiden. Welcome, Aiden.
Hey, Michael. Hey, Justin.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so tonight we're going to talk about Gauntlet II. But Aiden, we got him on. He's a listener from a long time ago. I'm not going to put him on the spot and ask him how caught up he is on the show, because that wouldn't be fair. I know most people don't listen anymore, so that's, it is what it is. But Aiden, long-time listener, going to join us on the show, also made his own game. So I was going to give him an opportunity to give us like a little elevator pitch, and then maybe we'll talk about his game later on in the show. But for now, we got 20 seconds in an elevator, Aiden. Give us your game's little quick spiel.
So I made a game called The Square Game. It's a 2D action platformer with 24 super short hard levels, where the goal is to get to the end of each level. Very hard, classic inspired game. It would be right at home on the NES.
There we go. That's what we want to hear. So it's called The Square Game. They can get it on Steam, right?
Yeah, Steam.
Yeah. So if you want to check that out, it's relatively cheap. Aiden's not trying to charge you an arm and a leg. So if you want to go check that out, do. And we'll talk about it again later in the show. But because Justin delayed us so much, I think we need to get rolling. And let's talk about Gauntlet. I want to talk about Gauntlet 2. Justin, do you have any history for us? Yeah.
Is it Gauntlet 2 as in number 2, or Gauntlet 2 as in TOO, like also Gauntlet?
Well, I don't know. That's a good question. I think it's the number 2. I don't know of any game on the face of the planet that's like Gauntlet also, or anything also. That would be strange.
It was okay. My bad. It was a very poor attempt at a joke. So.
Yeah, I know. It was funny, and actually, I was trying to make fun of you and just turn that funny up one more notch, see if we could make that happen. I don't know. We probably failed. And I'm hoping.
Anyway,
we're gonna get into the history, but I'm hoping you also got some hot slapper bags talk for this pod at some point. You told me you might, so.
No, I don't have any hot slapper bags talk, unfortunately.
Mm. Did he make any 3-pointers or anything tonight? Justin played basketball with slapper bags.
You know what? I actually didn't make it because I ended up not getting out of work in time, so it's even more disappointing.
That is pretty disappointing, although hilarious that people are bailing on slapper bags.
He's asked me like 4 times, and I feel so bad.
I know.
Every time he asks me to come play, I'm like, yeah, I'll come play, and then something happens, and I'm like, oh, I can't come play.
Yeah, same thing happens to me. So, for some reason, I don't know why. I love him. He's a dear friend, but it just gives me joy the fact that multiple people have bailed on him for multiple weeks, and I don't know why. I guess that makes me a bad person. I don't know. I'm sure it does.
All right. Anyway,
let's do history. Here we go.
Now it's time for Justin's historical tidbits and trivia. Time to get out your D-pad notepads because you're about to get schooled by the doctor.
By the way, you're going to hear that a lot on this episode because that's all we got. So anyways.
That's all we got. That's all we got. More on that later. All right. So for our historical tidbits and trivia, I have this game.
Yes. Sweet.
All right. So we got Michael versus Aiden in this week's edition, or this month's edition, I guess you should say.
Yeah.
On our recording pattern of our historical tidbits and trivia quiz game on Gauntlet II. So Aiden, just to familiarize you and everyone listening with the rules of the game, I will read a question. Each question will have 4 multiple choice choices. If you think you know the answer, you can buzz in at any time. You can buzz in even when I'm still reading the question, but you can't get the answer choices if you do so. And you buzz in by saying your name. And we have 5 questions, so basically the first 1 to 3 wins. Are you all ready?
Yep. So we're going with Michael and Aiden, right? Same number of syllables.
Yeah.
Right. Sounds good. All right. Question number 1. So shortly after the release of the Gauntlet 1, Atari Games had a contest where players submitted level designs, game ideas, and other suggestions for a possible Gauntlet sequel. The winners were announced on April 1986 issue of Atari Games newsletters, and the developers actually implemented some of those suggestions. But during the release of Gauntlet 2, Atari Games held a second contest for players of this game. What was that contest asking the players to do? Was it A, who could play the game the longest in one sitting? B, who could figure out a password for infinite lives? C, who could find secret rooms in the game? Or D, who could be the 1,000th buyer?
Michael.
Aiden.
I'm going to go with C, find a hidden room. That seems like a very elder thing to do.
It is. So Atari Games had a second contest where players were tasked to find secret rooms in the game itself. So, but the follow-up to that is question number 2, which was, what was the prize for that contest? So they would send in to Atari that they found it. They would give them a code, and the code was an entry form. The grand prize was what? Was it A, a trip to the Bahamas? B, an arcade cabinet version of the game? C, a hat? Or D, a $5,000 U.S. savings bond?
Michael.
No.
I think Michael buzzed in there.
I know. Okay, a little behind the curtains. My psyche with you, Justin. I know that it can't be C, a hat, because the way you said a hat, it was too. you were too condescending about the hat. But I'm thinking. Give me B and D again.
So B was an arcade cabinet version of the game, and D was a $5,000 U.S. savings bond.
I think B is too on the nose. I think D is ridiculous enough that you would put this in as a question. I'm going with D.
It is D. The grand prize for this contest was a U.S. government savings bond valued at $5,000.
That is so silly.
Nuts.
So, and the first 500 entries received a T-shirt as well.
Okay.
I tried. You know what? I tried to hunt down with a little research what happened to the winner of the $5,000 U.S. savings bond. My hope was that he still had it or something, but I couldn't find any information on who won or anything about it. So.
Now, how does savings bonds? How does the U.S. savings bond work? It's worth 5,000 and then it stays worth 5,000, or would that have appreciated in value?
It should have appreciation, but it's a very low rate.
It's a very steady 3% or something. Right?
Yeah, okay. Yeah. These are things that you would hold on to for a long time.
Gotcha.
I think it was I know when I was a baby, when I was born, a lot of people or my aunt and uncles bought me savings bonds. I don't know, and they were worth a little bit more than when they were cashed in, but whatever. So I don't think you can get a whole lot of money.
Gotcha.
Either way, we're tied 1-1 going into question 3. All right. Gauntlet II was one of the first games utilizing 4 players. What is the name of one of the 4-player devices you could utilize?
Aiden.
Is it Aiden?
Is it the Nintendo? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Is it the Nintendo Satellite?
Okay. That is technically correct, but it wasn't one of the choices. So I'm going to let you. I'm going to let you have the opportunity to still buzz in, because that was a technically correct answer. But it wasn't
can I say
one
Michael
of the 4 choices.
now and buzz in ahead of him, because I know what the other one is.
I feel like this isn't fair. I feel like this isn't fair now. We might just have to throw this question out. Okay.
It's the 4 score.
Didn't
right?
include. Yeah, it's the 4 score, but we're going to throw this question out because that's not fair. Because the satellite is also correct. So.
Okay. Question's out.
That was a poorly done question. Yeah, because you guys both knew it without the. I should have known you all would know that, but I don't. Anyway, all right. So still tied 1-1. What magazine labeled the arcade version of this game the 3rd best arcade game of all time?
Whoa.
Was it A, Electronic Gaming Monthly, B, The Games Machine, C, Atari Games Player Journal, or D, D is Arcade History?
Aiden. Is it C?
It is not C.
Darn.
But a good guess on Atari Games. They would just name their own game. One of their own.
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me with Atari. You never know.
Yeah.
I want to ask a clarifying question, but I think it would make it unfair.
Okay.
So
don't ask it.
I won't ask it. I'm going to say, you know what? I don't even remember the choice. I'm just going to say A.
It is A, Electronic Gaming Monthly's November 1996 top 10 arcade games of all time. Listed Gauntlet II as the 3rd best.
Now, my question...
2-1.
Can I ask my follow question now, or my clarifying question?
Mm-hmm.
Was it
yes.
third best arcade game of all time? Was it rated back when the game came out, or was it much later, the year 2002 or something?
It was 1996 when the list was made.
Okay, all right. So yeah,
So you mean you would have had a lot of better games, but still.
Yeah. Anyway,
whatever. Well, I shouldn't say that. Well, I'll say that. But okay. Question number 5. So Aiden's got to tie you up here.
Okay.
Or Mike gets the win. Ed Logg was one of the developers of this game. What other classic Atari game, or what other classic game, did he co-create? Is it... Oh, wait a minute. This messed up here.
I've never heard of that one.
Sorry.
Overrated. It's an interesting enough game, but
sorry about that. Is it A, Asteroids? Is it B, Dig Dug, C, Breakout, or D, Pong? Aiden?
It's B.
It is not B.
Oh, darn.
I'm gonna. I don't even know who this guy is. Can you give me the choices again?
So you would be left with, Asteroids, This thing keeps closing. Asteroids, Breakout, or Pong?
Wait, I know it's not Pong. I guess I'll go with Asteroids.
It is Asteroids.
Oh wow!
So Mike wins the game. But so Ed Logg, one of the lead developers, he was one of the lead developers for many Atari games, including Asteroids, Centipede, Super Breakout, and Millipede, and also.
You threw a red herring in there, but neither one of us had enough insight to even know the red herring until just now.
My next guess would have been Breakout, but yeah.
Yeah, so he didn't. So he created Super Breakout after hearing Atari wanted to make a sequel to Breakout, but he didn't do the original. All right, good game. I hate that one question kind of got thrown out, but oh well. Mike with the win.
Pretty sure I don't want it if it wasn't for that question. I mean,
that's true. I think so. I think it just stole your momentum.
Yeah, we heard
the blame for that.
Just random tangent. Have either of you guys played the original Asteroids?
The original Asteroids?
Yeah, on an arcade cabinet, they used a different kind of screen. And with like the white lights, when you like fire a gun, it like literally illuminates your face. It's incredibly cool.
Yeah, it is really cool.
I guess I've never have. So
yeah, you need if you ever get a chance, Justin. It is really cool. There's several games in that same vein, kind of. I don't know what you call it. I can't remember what it's called, but yeah.
I think they used a different kind of screen before CRTs were commonplace, so it was far more expensive, but it had more intensity with the light.
Yeah, it almost looks like it kind of reminds you of like modern day. It's like OLED because the whole thing is just pitch black except for your little ship and all the asteroids are like these white lines. It's really cool.
Oh yeah, it's really cool.
But yes, yeah. If you ever get a chance, they're probably hard to find. I'm sure like some of those big like classic arcade places have them. That's where I played it.
I was trying to think, did Barcade have it?
Barcade never had Asteroids.
Yeah, so that'd be the only place I probably would have ever played it.
All right. So, well, okay. Do you care if I throw in a segment? I got a few questions for Ask Dr. Justin from a few people. So just a handful. I mean, if you guys don't care, and Aiden, feel free to answer as well if you have any insight. But so frequent question asker on the Dr. Justin segment. President Biding has sent a question in. He says, which animal is the biggest party animal?
Oh, easy. Hippopotamus.
Okay.
I actually think a crow, because they spend all night raving.
Whoa, hold on. You just earned something.
Wait a minute.
Let me pull it up here.
Actually, you know what?
It's a little late, but there you go.
I will take that.
Yeah. So did you hear about the Norway, the Navy in Norway?
No. Are they using like murder crows or something?
No, they have this new system where they put barcodes on their ships so that when they come in after they've been sailing, they scan the Navy and
the weird thing about that joke is I've heard it before and I just didn't catch on.
Yeah, that's good. I was ready with the rim shot on that one.
Yeah. All right.
Anyway, this one comes in from Vice President Kamala Harris. Kamala Chameleon. I don't know how. I can't pronounce it. I'm sorry. Which would you prefer to have as your roommate? A goat or a bird?
Well, I think the goat's poop would be easier to clean up, so I'm going to pick the goat.
Okay, would it change your answer
Yes.
if this was a house-trained goat or bird?
Still pick the goat.
Okay.
It'd be more. I think it'd be more fun.
The goat would be pretty
The bird
fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it depends on the bird. Like, imagine having an attack eagle. That'd be pretty cool.
I mean, and a crow too, an attack crow. That's crows are pretty big, and they're very intelligent birds. So, but I saw a good joke about, not to get on another tangent, but I saw a good joke about a goat the other day. It was actually Jim Gaffigan, and he was talking about how we got to the point of eating goat cheese. He's like, well, this cow cheese is really good, but that dog over there that looks like he's on meth, let's milk that.
That's pretty good. Okay, this one comes in from Anonymous. If you could add a body part, what would it be?
Horns.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know. Probably wings. You got to probably go with wings.
Okay.
These would be cool.
But you'd be too heavy. They'd have to, the bird, think about birds, they fly, they have wings, but they're also basically hollow. I don't think your bones would be able to fly.
Sure.
You'd be too heavy. You just have wings.
Sure.
You'd be just running around with just wings. Everybody like, are you going to fly for us? You're like, sorry, I can't. I'm too heavy.
Oh man, no, these wings are just for looks.
It'd be a cool conversation starter. It's like, why do you have wings? Like, why not?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just have wings. I don't know, bro. Why you got arms?
Yeah. All right. Any more of these?
I got one more to round us out. Which would you rather win? The lottery or to be named Employee of the Month every month forever?
Well, the Employee of the Month, it would be pretty enticing with that parking spot and all. But by the way, isn't it what the Employee of the Month is almost always empty? It's like you show up and they give the Employee of the Month the parking spot, but they also give them the month off, apparently.
Apparently,
but I'm taking the lottery.
Okay,
I'm taking the lottery.
I would also take the lottery.
Yeah, that was a gimme. I don't know who sent that one in, but it's probably Nick Stevens.
Well, here in the U.S., there's a lot of places that are given the lottery for if you get your COVID shot.
That's true.
I feel it's like a jip because I got mine when it first came out. Because I worked at a hospital, and it's like, hey, where's my chance to get in the lottery?
Yeah, punishing the people who got in early, huh?
Yeah.
I mean, you got your own reward. You got your immunity. Okay, let the rest of us have the lottery.
I guess. Anyway.
All right, let's do the quest.
Now it's time for the thrill of 8-bit discovery with Michael's quest to find the cart.
All right. So this one, I've got a legit quest for this one. I actually bought this one off of Pick-a-Flick back in the day. When Pick-a-Flick was closing down. I remember, because I've rented this one all the time. And when Pick-a-Flick was closing down, I just bought it. I don't remember how much I paid for it. It's probably in the order less than $5, I'm sure. But yeah, that's a pretty simple quest for the card, but I finally have a real one, so I figured I better tell it.
Yeah. Well, we haven't talked about Pick-a-Flick in a long time, and that was something that we used to talk about a lot.
That's true.
So bringing it back. Bringing it back.
Got to talk about Pick-a-Flick. How about you, Aiden? Did you get this game? Do you have a story for how you got this game?
So I grew up in Aurora, Colorado, and for Christmas, since my cousins had, my cousins are like a good few years older than me, so they had all these classic games. Sadly, I traded them in when I was like 7 for Mario Galaxy and Melee. But I got into watching people play the NES on YouTube. God, that probably dated me. When I was like 10, so I was like, hey, can we get this portable NES console for Christmas? And my parents were like, yeah, sure. And there was a retro game store in Aurora, and we got 6 games. I got Duck Hunt and Mario, and my older brother got Gauntlet 2 from some guy called Brian. There was a label on the back, so thank you for the game, Brian. Yeah,
Gotta love those.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Brian.
Yeah, and so you totally dated yourself. You are a young whippersnapper compared to us.
Yeah, I'm 20. So yeah.
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah, I was born 16 years after the NES. So.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy to think about. But it's cool that somebody your age can be so into it. I like that. That's neat.
Oh yeah.
They're different games. They're really interesting.
Yeah. Justin, did you get this game?
No, this isn't one that I had, or really was one that was on my radar much. So this was a completely new play for me.
Cool. All right. No, it didn't stick out to you at Pick a Flick with that hot Valkyrie on the cover.
Yeah, I mean it's a pretty sweet Valkyrie, but I don't recall it.
Okay.
Tickling my fancy.
Okay. All right. Well, you know what they say about tickling.
Time to dig into some good old-fashioned game discussion.
I didn't want to get into all that tickling talk. We'd be here all night. We do need to take a quick break, though, so we're gonna take a little commercial break. All right.
I'm Tom Arnold, and I'm impressed that you're listening to Two Dudes and a NES.
All right. So, in case people haven't figured it out yet, Tom Arnold brings us back from our commercial breaks. So that's just the way we roll these days.
I got to bring this up, by the way. You did interrupt the hot Valkyrie talk, and I do have some hot Valkyrie talk. You ready for this?
Oh, yeah. I'm always ready for hot Valkyrie talk.
Do you know what a Valkyrie is? You know what a Valkyrie is? Because I looked it up. Because I thought it was like a bird of some kind, right?
I just always thought, based on Gauntlet, that it was like some kind of female Viking or something.
So in Norse mythology, it is known as the chooser of the slain. And it is a female figure who chooses those who may die in battle and those who may live.
Oh.
They're sitting there just like, you're out. You're in.
That's not very nice.
So, there you go.
Dead, alive, dead. What a job.
So,
I don't think I'd like that job. All right, let's
but you would think with the name like Valkyrie, it would be, something more dominating. I guess it's pretty dominant.
Well, isn't there like a song like Flight of the Valkyrie or something like that?
That's a really old classical piece.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah. Interesting. We may have to do a whole podcast on Valkyries, Justin.
I think so.
No, I'm just kidding. That sounds... Yeah.
I'm having trouble connecting to the internet.
Oh.
It looks like an issue with the router and echo device, so try restarting them. Unplug both of them. Plug the router back in.
Gotta love the guest cameos.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Was that's good. I'll put a pin in that one. I'll put that episode on the shelf with the Silver Surfer episode. We'll talk about that one day.
Alexa making a oh crap! I shouldn't have said that.
Here we go.
but her making an appearance is about like Soundboard Mario making an appearance.
Yeah. She's right up there. Hey, you know what? Alexa should have a Soundboard Mario in her system. That'd be great. She should be able to talk to Mario.
Yeah, somebody needs to make an app for that.
We'll figure it out.
Anyway, let's talk about this game.
Yes, and no better way to talk about the game than with the manual. I guess I'll take care of it. I'll do the manual reading this time. Step back into the mazes of the dark dungeons with Thor, Thyra, Questor, and Merlin. With over 100 new mazes to explore, experience all the action, graphics, and sound of the arcade. Use your powers to fend off your old enemies, ghosts, grunts, demons, lobbers, and sorcerers, along with a couple of new ones. As you delve deeper into the dungeons, you'll become enthralled with the world of Gauntlet II.
Raw, man.
Mm-hmm. And that's the story that they give us. That's pretty much it. But so we don't go in order when we talk about games. So there was a Gauntlet 1, surprise, surprise. We have not talked about that one yet, but they're very similar. So we potentially could have combined them into one episode almost, as similar as they are. But we don't do that on this show. So we're going to talk about 2. But basically, what you're doing in this game is you're searching through mazes, picking up treasures, potions, meat that's laying on the floor. And you can there's 4 different characters. There is a warrior, there's a Valkyrie, a wizard, and an elf. Each player begins with 2,000 health points, which is basically, it's similar to, what was that game we played? Adventure Island, where they get hungry and their life goes down as they get hungry. But you can eat or drink things, but some of the things are poisoned, so that's frustrating. But anyways, we'll dig deeper into it. But that's just the gist of it. It's top down. I don't know who hasn't played Gauntlet at some point in their life. I don't know why I'm even explaining it, because I think everybody's probably played it. But it's top down action, kind of RPG like. You're looking for keys, searching through maze, and you're shooting projectiles out. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That's the gist of the game. But there's 4 characters, so I want to talk about the characters because I'm curious who everybody's favorite character is. So there's Thor, who, according to the manual, has tough skin, which eliminates 20% of damage. He has an excellent shot power, twice the normal power. His hand-to-hand combat is excellent, can destroy monster generators with hand-to-hand, but he has poor magic. Damages most monsters, but his magic does not affect the generators. All right, so that's Thor.
Right.
He's a brute, and the hand-to-hand's weird in this game. We'll talk about that here in a minute. But he's hand-to-hand. He's got pretty good shot power. Then there's Thyra, the Valkyrie. Her armor is the best out of everybody. It reduces 30% of damage, but her shot power is poor. Her hand-to-hand is just good. She can destroy the generators with her hand-to-hand combat. And her magic power is moderate. She can destroy monsters and generators. I guess, so as not to be confusing, this game it's got monsters in it, and then it's got monster generators. So think of, there's like a thing that spawns all the enemies, and you have to go destroy the thing that spawns them. So that's what the generators are when I'm mentioning generators. Merlin is a wizard. He has no armor, so he doesn't reduce the damage hit by anything. His shot power is good. His hand-to-hand combat is basically non-existent. He can't destroy anything in hand-to-hand combat. But his magic power is excellent. He can destroy anything with his magic. And then the elf is, he's got 10% damage reduction, poor shot power, moderate hand-to-hand, which means he's basically poo-poo, not good at hand-to-hand. And he's got very good magic. So essentially they're all kind of balanced, but they lean one way or the other. I did not like, I'll go ahead and tell you, I played as the warrior most of the time because I did not like not being able to do hand-to-hand, and I also didn't like taking too much damage from the guy. I wanted to be kind of like a bruiser, you know what I mean? So I went with Thor.
Slashing up, right?
Yeah. Does that mean I picked the best character or made it very far in the game? No, probably not. But that was just my play style. What about you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I played as the warrior as well. First of all, I never played as the elf. I kind of found that to be, I don't want to play as an elf. I can play as a warrior, play as a Valkyrie, but I'm not going to play as the elf. So, But that was just that. So I played basically with the same as you. I was always the warrior, brute force.
Justin, I am hurt and offended. I play as the elf, the best character.
I knew you were going to say that after I did that. After I said that.
No, actually, I didn't know there was actually hand-to-hand combat or anything. I just like the elf because they're faster than all the other characters.
Yeah, the elf is. They don't mention speed on here, but the elf is definitely the fastest character.
Yeah,
and
you can actually.
His shot power is poor, but the speed of his shot is really fast. So.
Yeah, and you can actually move so fast that the NES can't load the sections that you run into. So if you're on the edge of the screen, it'll take a bit for it to move.
Yeah,
which is interesting.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of a programming thing, right? made it too.
Not programming per se, but more because like the NES isn't like a super powerful machine. So loading a game as complex as Gauntlet 2 would take a lot of computing power. Yeah.
So I guess I don't. That's everybody mentioned that they didn't really know there was hand to hand. That's one of my biggest gripe with this game, is that there's hand to hand combat, right? But the mechanic by which it works is like super confusing because there's no graphical way of knowing if you're doing hand-to-hand combat, and if you just stand there, I don't think it actually does anything. You have to push this. You have to push your D-pad in the direction that you want to do hand-to-hand combat. But there's no you don't get any feedback about whether or not you're actually doing anything like that. So that's, as far as the gameplay combat is concerned, that's one of my biggest gripes. I think is the fact that there's no feedback to the hand-to-hand mechanic.
Yeah. Oh, I was just gonna say it's really weird how they wouldn't even add in any sort of animation or anything to that.
Yeah, that's my thing. It's why can't we at least get a weapon? There's a weapon that shoots out of the guy, as a projectile weapon. Why not just have it just kind of stick out of his body real quick or something? Just something that it doesn't even have to be super complicated. It's just a little something to give me some feedback that I'm doing hand to hand.
Yeah.
But anyways, so there's pretty wide variety of enemies. A lot of them are repeats from the first game. Ghosts, which is pretty much the most common enemy. I think it's the one that's around the most, at least early in the game. You have to shoot them. You can't use the hand to hand on the ghosts for obvious reasons. They're ghosts, right?
Yeah.
It's I can't punch a ghost.
Right through.
I can't punch a ghost. This game is breaking all my sense of reality.
Yeah, it's just science. I mean.
But yeah, there's, grunts also. You can hand-to-hand combat them, demons, lobbers, or I mean, they throw rocks over the walls at you, but I don't really know what. I mean, the lobber is basically just saying some dude can throw stuff. I mean, it's not really I don't know. It's a silly name for the character, I guess what I was trying to say. He's a lobber. Okay. Could you not have made him an orc or something? Just I don't know. But it does remind me of the lobber reminds me of one of my favorite Saturday Night Live skits ever, and that is the Peyton Manning throwing the rock in the movie 300. You guys seen that one?
I love it. He's just standing there with the rock over his head.
Yeah. Mitch, throw the rock, Mitch. Oh, you wanted me to throw the rock. Oh, okay. Yeah. Anyways,
he just keeps standing there.
Yeah, that's great.
And then every now and then he goes.
Yeah. Anyways, sorry, a little bit of a tangent there.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a bunch of various enemies. Some of them are super annoying. Like death. I always thought death was super annoying because you have to use magic on him, right? And so me being the warrior was it didn't really work out too well.
Yeah.
So the whole time in this game, you're trying, basically each level you're trying to make it to the exit, similar to the Square game, Aiden's game.
Yeah.
But the whole time you're trying to make it to the exit, there's power-ups and stuff you can pick up. But you're also getting hungry the whole time. And so you have to find food, which in the form of, it looks like just a plate of meat. Or cider. You can drink cider, and that will replenish your health. But you can also shoot the food and shoot the cider and just destroy it, which that was also something that was just so annoying to me that you could do that.
That soundbite where it goes, the elf shot the food, has kept me up late nights. I just wake up screaming, going, the elf shot the food. Like, oh no.
It would be the
Haunt my nightmares.
That's a good point, though. That's a good topic to switch to real quick. This game talks to you. It's got several audio, which is pretty darn unique, especially on the NES. A game that actually speaks words to you, and you can kind of understand the words that they say, which is surprising.
Yeah, because it's weird how much. I'm assuming that would take up a lot of storage space on a cartridge, which is it even a megabyte? It's like a few kilobytes, which is just crazy to think.
Yeah, that's right. Because I'm not exactly sure how it works. I mean, it's synthesized. Obviously, it's not. It's not because the NES, the sound, they didn't have any ability to take recorded sound and repeat it back. So it's somehow synthesized. But yeah, I don't know. It's weird we need like an Aaron Hickman on or something to discuss this, because I don't really know how it works.
I'm pretty sure it's
real quick.
Probably programming wizardry. Oh, sorry.
You want me to call Aaron? Is that what you said?
I said, you want me to just give him a quick ring? We can ask him real quick.
Yeah, it's only like almost 11 o'clock his time. He's an hour behind us.
Yeah.
Okay. Nah, we'll leave him alone. We'll leave Aaron alone.
We'll put it in for the next Ask Aaron.
Yeah, that's a good idea. We'll take up some of that Genesis Gems time. Don't take up our time with that.
Exactly.
NES question. A little Genesis Gems time with an NES question.
Perfect.
But I've went on a tangent to see how they did SNES music, and literally they'd have to say this note happened at this time, and you have to do it all manually. So to do something on older hardware like voice synthesizing, it's probably just some absolute ridiculous programming wizardry. It's nuts how they fit that in.
Yeah, so the SNES, I'm pretty sure the SNES had a channel for recorded, where they could record sound and then spit it out on the SNES. Yeah. But on the NES, they didn't have a channel like that. So yeah, there's definitely some kind of programming wizardry, like you said, that's got makes this work.
Absolute nuts.
Yeah, it's cool though. I can get behind that.
Yeah, I find people I'll hear stories about how someone did something back in the 80s. It's that's really cool that they use the limits of technology. While I'm here, how do I do this very simple programming task? That should not be an issue.
Yeah,
it's very cool.
Makes you feel a little humble, right?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, no, I'm not a great programmer. It's throw a number at that computer and I hope for the best. But yeah.
But as cool as the sound effects are and the voice acting, I'll call it voice acting, even though it's not. As cool as the sound effects are and stuff, you know what this game's sorely missing? And maybe because all that talking took up so much space, I don't know, but there ain't any music in this game.
Yeah.
It just does not exist. There's the intro song, and that's it, pretty much.
Right.
I mean, after you've heard the intro song, do you need anything else? Every single time I play this, I just dance in my seat. It's just a bop.
I mean, it's a cool song. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of glad that they didn't just play the song the whole time you're playing the game.
Could have made it worse.
Yeah, I don't really miss not having music in games, because I just put on my normal music, so I just really didn't miss anything.
Yeah.
Michael, what do you think? Do you think you wanted music while you were playing, or would you rather have the voices?
I don't know. It's weird. I like the idea. The voices are cool. Okay. If I gotta have one or the other, I guess. I don't know. Because what happens is if I don't have music in the game, I'll probably just put some headphones in or something and play and listen to a podcast or something. So I'm not even going to hear the voices in the game for the most part. But I also do that if the music in the game kind of stinks. I'll put headphones in. So, like, if it was, so it's kind of a catch-22. Do they play the main theme over and over and over again? No, that would drive me nuts. Do they play nothing and then have voices every now and then? I guess I prefer that. But if I had the option to have several different songs, then that's what I would probably want. Because the main theme to Gauntlet's pretty iconic, and I like it. So whoever wrote that, you didn't touch on that in the history, but whoever wrote the music to the intro, I feel like they should have been able to do a few more tunes. It'd probably been pretty catchy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you think it would be. I don't know. Maybe it was a memory issue. But
Yeah, I'd say it probably would be a memory issue because, like, with the voices, that would take up a lot of space for the music.
Yeah.
Well, the music was it's attributed to Hal Cannon, Brad Fuller, and Earl Vickers.
Oh, Earl Vickers. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, the biggest thing I think that we haven't talked about, other than in the trivia game, is this is a 4-player cooperative game, or not. We'll talk about that here in just a minute. It's not necessarily cooperative, but you can play 4 players on the NES if you had the right attachments. And that is pretty cool because that's something that's always kind of stuck out to me about Gauntlet, because that's something that's always kind of been there with Gauntlet, especially in the arcades and stuff, where there's 4 players. You could all be the same character, but each player was a color, right? So it's like, that's why, it's Red Warrior or Red Elf, and then Blue Warrior and Blue Elf. So you could all be the same character, but you're different colors. I don't know if you could in the first Gauntlet. I don't think you could be the same. I think you had to be different characters in the first Gauntlet. But in Gauntlet 2, you can be the same characters. But yeah, you can play 4-player cooperative. And, that's pretty neat.
Yeah, that is pretty neat.
Yeah. Sorry, go on, please.
No, did either of you guys ever play 4-player?
Only got up to 2-player, sadly.
Yeah, I didn't play 4-player on the NES. I played it on the arcade. I think I can't remember which Gauntlet it was. I think it was Gauntlet 2 that I played in the arcade and just played with like 3 other random people. It would have been much more fun with people I knew, I'm sure, but it was still kind of cool.
My friends went to an arcade called Nicola Play, and they played it 4 players. So that was the first Gauntlet. And yeah, they said it was a lot of fun. And then my dad, he was playing like the actual Gauntlet in an arcade, or actually in a bar, because I had it there. He told me a story that someone was trying to get high score and they just hogged the machine all night, which was very cool. Yeah. My tangent, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's cool.
Boy, I tell you what, if I had $1 for every time Michael told me about his dad going and playing some video game,
you'd be broke.
There's actually, my dad's from London, but he went to Cork as a child occasionally. So in London, they'd have like all like the new arcade machines, and you get really good at them. And then if, let's say, they brought in like an old one into Cork that no one else played, he'd get like really good at them, and like everyone on the arcade would watch for a bit.
Yeah, what is Cork?
So Cork is the 2nd largest city in Ireland. Objectively the best city in Ireland. It's called the 2nd capital. It has a lot of text. It has a lot of character. It's a really nice city.
Okay, all right. Yeah, so I just sound really dumb now. Like I should have known that, right? But there you go. Sorry, wouldn't be the first time I sound dumb on the podcast. It probably happens 2 or 3 times an episode.
It's Irish geography. It's not like a very need to know subject.
Right. Are you okay over there in your Air Force Ones?
I don't know what's going on with all my electronics tonight.
I swear that was Air Force Ones. Was that the song Air Force Ones? And why that would just randomly start playing, I don't know. I'm thinking you're doing something over there. And then...
But anyway.
All right, sorry. Yeah, 4 players. So it's cool. It's a bit... I can imagine it would be a bit hectic on the NES. I think the sprite count would probably that make the NES just kind of poop the bed. I don't know. But the cool thing, the one thing I never really got to try that I really want to try at some point in Gauntlet 2, there is a mechanic in the game where you can essentially play tag with the other players, where one character is quote unquote it, and all the enemies go after that player. But then they could tag another player, and then all the enemies go after that player, and that is just that's why I said cooperative, sort of, not necessarily.
Yeah,
and that's just a really neat idea for a cooperative game back then, to have this idea that you could kind of make it competitive too, a little bit at the same time.
Competitive, but like definitely you can screw over your other players. Like, heck you're gonna like die and put more money in the machine.
Exactly, yeah. Which so it's not totally competitive, but it is a little bit of. That's why I said it would probably be fun to play with friends instead of random people, because I'd be much more inclined to try to knock Justin down a peg while we're playing than random Joe Schmo.
That's true. That is true.
Anything else you guys want to say about the game? I feel like we probably didn't.
So the one thing I did find is very interesting. I play a lot of roguelikes, basically randomly generated levels, and they didn't have that in the game. But what they did do is the first, I want to say 10 levels are the same, 5 to 10 levels. I can't remember which one exactly. But when you get to a point, all the levels are randomly added in, and then sometimes will be mirrored or flipped vertically, which adds a ton of replayability, which I think is absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, that is true. I think it's level 6 or 7 is when it changes.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, that's another cool aspect. Makes it kind of unique, because back in the NES days, most games were, these are your levels. You're always going to play these levels. There wasn't a ton of like random generating of things, but yeah, this game has it, and sometimes there's even like special rules in the level. You know what I mean?
Oh, I remember those. Those are cool.
Yeah, like that. If you determine which exit's the real exit, you get like a secret room, and all kinds of weird stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like multiple exits that disappear, and some that try to run, that are fake, not real exits, that sort of stuff. Yeah. So I thought that was neat too, how that not only could the room be different or mirrored or something, but the mechanics of the room could be different.
I remember like the fake exits ones, where like almost half the tiles in the room would be like exits, and me and my friends would just like go around for like ages trying to find the right exit, and it just like randomly happens. Like, oh,
those rooms were really annoying. I did not like those rooms.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not saying all these things are good. I'm just saying it's neat that they tried something like this. Some of the stuff I just did not like.
Interesting is the word I use for stuff I don't like, and I'm trying to be polite.
Yeah, exactly.
It was an interesting design decision.
Right. There's a lot of interesting design decisions in this game, but this game has always felt unique to me for whatever reason. It's always felt like its own kind of style of game. I know it's similar to a lot of games, but there's something about Gauntlet 1 and 2 that has always just kind of felt unique.
Yeah, I'd say it's... Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Like, I guess it's like a really old top-down shooter. Like, I've played Alien Syndrome, and it kind of had the same feel, but it's like so retro that puts a new spin on it, but also with some almost modern takes with like pseudo randomly generated and like multiplayer. So it feels a lot ahead of its time almost, which I really like about it.
Yeah. It's also kind of similar. It kind of reminds me of like Smash TV. I mean, there's definitely a genre that this fits in. But Gauntlet's always kind of stuck out to me.
I consider it a dungeon crawler almost.
Yeah, it's kind of got that feel too. Kind of like an early like Baldur's Gate or something.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that this game, I feel like it definitely influenced a lot of games that came after. Maybe not Gauntlet 2. Maybe not Gauntlet 2 specifically, because Gauntlet 2 is just kind of like it kind of feels like Gauntlet Plus or something. Like it's not really a true sequel. It's just like a better, maybe a better version of the first Gauntlet. But, yeah. What about we've talked about most everything except for the graphics, I think. What do you think about the graphics?
Interesting. Oh, also, random aside, which a lot of people say this, which is a minor pet peeve. Graphics actually are about how many like pixels on screen. So the graphics in this game, they did really well with how they did like the technical side, but like how the game looks is actually pretty cool.
Yeah. You said interesting though, and you just got through telling us that interesting is you're being polite when you don't like something.
Okay, like it was so zoomed out, and like the sprites were like they're tiny. So how they dealt with taking a game that massive and putting it on a cartridge is really it's interesting in a good way. But like, I'm not going to look at a screenshot and go, "This is incredible. This is like the definition of art." If you get me.
Yeah. No, I got you. From a technical standpoint, the amount of sprites and stuff that they fit on screen, with not zero slowdown. There's obviously some flicker and slowdown, at least there was in my playthrough, but minimal considering everything that's on screen. But boy, it was not pretty to look at. I just did not like the look of the game.
Yeah,
I don't like the first one or the second or this one, but they're very similar. But I just the little sprites are so washed out. I guess they wanted each one has to be a different color because of the way that they designed the game. But I don't know. It's just, and all the enemies are very bland. All the mazes and the levels are just so bland. It's just, I don't want to say that they're bad, because they're not bad, but they're boring, I guess maybe is the word I would use. They're just kind of boring.
My opinion on art, which kind of came into when I developed games, is art has to do two functions. Telegraph stuff to the player and look pretty. Like, it does telegraph exactly what it needs to be. You can just go, okay, that's a spawner, that's an enemy, that's a wall. It does that fine. It's in my opinion, it's not great to look at.
Yeah, and I think it struggles to convey stuff sometimes, especially when it comes to like the power ups versus power downs. We'll call them power downs. They're like some of the food and stuff. Some of that looks way too similar for me to know what it. You know what I mean? Some of the food blends in with some of the generators and stuff. And if it wasn't for the enemies coming out of them, sometimes I would think it was a pile of meat.
Yeah, you make a fair point. I didn't realize that. At the same time, though, it could make you try to shoot the food thinking it was a spawner.
Exactly, yeah. And then the ability to shoot the food and get yelled at by the game about it just kind of adds to it.
Oh, gotta love that voice. So much character to the game.
All right, let's go to asking about if it's worth it or not. Justin, do you know about how much this game goes for?
Yeah, so according to price charting, it is worth loose price about $10.
Okay. I think it's worth $10. That's pretty reasonable for this game.
Yeah.
You get a lot of replay value out of it.
Here's the thing. I got a bone to pick with this segment. I was thinking about this earlier today.
Okay.
Is it worth it? Is kind of a difficult question when the game's between $5 and $10, because unless the game's just awful, you're probably going to say, yeah, I'd spend $5 on it, or yeah, I'd spend $10 on it, right?
Right.
So when you got a game in this kind of price range, it doesn't really move the needle. Doesn't really make you sweat a little. Like you got to spend a little more money on it, you know?
Yeah. So the segment's maybe not as interesting on a game like this. I get that, but I think it's still valuable information. You know what I'm saying?
I guess when you got a game like this, we should maybe change the segment to how much would you pay for it?
Oh,
how much do you think it's worth?
Maybe add that additional piece to it.
Yeah. It's $10, but how much would you pay for it if, like, you know, how high would you go?
I would say about probably 30 almost. $30. Because, like, my opinion is, like, I'd pay $5 for a game if, let's say, I was going to spend an hour or two on it. And I'd probably put in, like, 20 or 30 hours into Gauntlet 2. So, like, I think that would well justify the price.
Yeah, see, that's a good way of thinking about it.
Mm-hmm. But, okay, my question then is, if we're doing this in this segment, do we have to do it for all games? Because part of my reasoning in this during this segment is always, well, you can get this game for this much, so is Gauntlet worth this much? But then if I say all of a sudden I'll say, well, I'll pay such and such for Gauntlet, then does that mean that other game I would pay more for? Because we didn't talk, you're really throwing a wrench into this whole segment.
It's okay. It's too late. It's too late in the life cycle of this podcast to start to redo the wheel. So I agree, but I just thought it just came into my. It's an interesting thought.
Yeah, I do. I like the idea. I do. I really do. I just I worry about the ramifications for every other game that I've talked about.
The very serious ramifications.
Very serious. And don't forget, we've done 2 different episodes where we've spent money on games, and then how does it affect that episode?
Oh, yeah, that's true.
I mean, this is a snowball effect here, buddy.
Yeah. So just going back to the original segment idea, I would say it's worth $10 to me. I would pay $10. I think it's a fun game. I think that for what it is, I think it's a lot of fun. It's really an arcade style game. It's not a whole lot of story background and kind of things to do. For example, I think the 4-player aspect is really cool. I think it's probably worth more, like Aiden said. I don't know that I'd go up to 30, but maybe 20. But definitely worth $10 to check out.
I guess a good follow-up question though is, in order to play this game, you're going to need either the NES Satellite or the Force Core. So to get the full effect, how much would you actually have to pay? Because you have to buy both.
No, that's a good question.
That's a good question.
Okay. Now I've got the satellite, but mine doesn't work. I've got a non-operational satellite set up. So I don't know how to get it fixed and working again, but I've got one. So I couldn't test it, couldn't tell you. But the satellite goes for about $15. So total, to get 4-player, you're looking at $25 using the satellite, assuming you can get one that's working.
I'm looking at the Foursquare. It's a little more expensive than the satellite.
Probably because it works.
It's between like $25 to $60.
Oh wow. Yeah, so you'd be looking at you're probably looking at like $50 on average, maybe, to play this with 4-player.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. That'd be a tough sell for me.
Also, you're going into the thing with multiple controllers, which are fairly expensive.
Yeah, that's true too.
Yeah, that's true. The satellite. So the problem with the satellite is it's like a infrared remote thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've seen it before and I hear it's interesting. But yeah, I prefer this Foursquare because of the wires and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know. So my satellite thing doesn't really work. I don't know if it's the infrared thing or Who knows what the reasoning is, but I can't get to work. But oh well. So, question before we move on to the next segment. Aiden stepped away for a second, by the way, Justin. So,
Okay.
So better question. Are we ever going to play basketball with cyber bags? And if so, do you think he still got it? Because I don't. I don't still got it. Mine's gone.
I don't still got it. I've had every intention of playing both this past 2 weeks. Last week I injured my neck. Actually, it was like my right trap was just really killing me, and so I just couldn't go play physically. Just couldn't play. Mm-hmm. And then this week I had every intention of going tonight, but then got busy and wasn't able to get out and make it down there in time. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to try again next week, but my track record, I'm just interested in who's there. Is this a whole nother world for Slapper Bags? Are we going to see other people? Is this like, the Seinfeld episode where Elaine's going to Bizarro Jerry's world,
Yes.
Like,
I have a feeling that there may be a Bizarro Michael and a Bizarro Justin out there. Because these are like his church friends or something. So I haven't seen John in well over a year. Definitely since before the pandemic. But probably a year and a half to 2 years, almost. I mean, it was like Scott was born and barely old, and maybe that's the last time I saw him. So like 2 years, and he's still been hanging out with people. He's got a whole new world now. I mean, not that he's not friends with us anymore. He'll still be our friend, but he's got his own thing going. And it's all the Catholic Church crowd thing that's going on with him. Nothing wrong with that. I'm glad he's got him some friends. But and I'm glad he's inviting us to these games. But we're gonna see some people that are like, hey, that guy's a little bit like Catholic version of me. John's got a new.
Is there a Catholic crab man?
I don't know, but I love that alliteration.
Remember Crabman Dose?
Yeah. I just blew your mind last episode about Crabman Dose.
Yeah, I forgot about that. We were just talking about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, Crabman Dose.
I need to see a Catholic Crabman though now. I'm going to have Catholic Crabman.
That would be great.
All right, let's go. Let's see if we got any trophies.
You know what this game needs? Some retrofitted trophies.
All right. Did you guys come up with any trophies?
I have 2.
Okay, sweet.
I have a couple.
All right. Well, go ahead, Aiden. Give us one.
Bringing the party together when you have 4 players to play the game.
All right, that works.
All right. Well, mine is basically the same trophy, except it's bring 4 players. Everybody plays as somebody different, and that is the gang's all here.
Okay, I like that. I also had one for all 4, and mine was called Foursquare. And that was play 4 players using the 4 score, which I often accidentally call the 4 square. The adapter's called the 4 score, but I frequently accidentally say 4 square for some reason.
4 score and 7. All right.
Yeah, thanks.
Right. I guess since we're going on that theme, I guess another one would be color coordinated outfits. One, you all pick the same character, but since it's different colors, you have color coordinated outfits almost, I guess.
Oh, you almost stole one of mine. I'm going to go ahead and pull mine in because mine's very similar. I had one called Rainbow Warriors, and that was before Warriors, all different colors.
Nice.
You got another one, Justin?
That's all I had.
I have one more. It's Party Ruiner when you accidentally shoot the ale.
Oh.
absolutely destroy the party. Gang was all here, and then someone shot the alcohol. Instant mood killer, honestly.
That's definitely a party killer right there.
Yeah. Although, to be fair, you really shouldn't be drinking alcohol that you find on the ground, or food for that matter.
Actually, I did drink some alcohol found on the ground one time. I was walking out of the UT Neyland Stadium, and I was in college at the time, so this was a really big deal. And laying on the ground was a pint of Canadian Club whiskey that was unopened, still sealed. So that was like best day ever. Not that that's like a good whiskey or anything, but when you're a poor college student, you just find it laying on the ground.
Oh yeah, I get you. Wait, so was it a pint of whiskey, or was it like a mixed drink with whiskey?
No, it was a pint, like a pint that you buy at the store.
Jeez.
Yeah, somebody just dropped it, or they fell out of their pants, or whatever.
Or it got confiscated on their way into the stadium or something, maybe.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, someone who the legal drinking age in Ireland is 18. So like a few years ago, there's a store called Lidl's, and they'd sell the worst vodka, but it was like 16 quid for half a liter. So me and my friends would split that. So I do understand being a broke college student.
Oh yeah.
Tasted like nail polish. Would not recommend.
Yeah, it reminds me of McCormick. We used to drink McCormick whiskey back in the college days too. That was disgusting.
Wasn't it McCormick vodka?
McCormick made all different kinds of alcohol. It wasn't just vodka. They had all kinds. True. It all tasted about the same. Didn't matter what kind of alcohol it was. That was a little weird, but yeah, it was disgusting. But they're, Travelers Club. I still stand by that. Although I can't drink it anymore. It's pretty gross, but I still stand by that.
Yeah, I've not had it in years.
Just keep it that way.
Yeah.
Okay, that's enough of that. The one other thing though, food on the ground. That's a staple in video games. So I say don't knock it till you try it.
Okay, I get that one point, but imagine you're in a castle, you break a brick, and it's they're the freshly cooked chicken. That'd be a bit weird.
That is true.
I mean, is it still hot? Or is it cooled off? I mean, that's a pretty big deal for me.
It'd be worse, honestly. Finding a chicken freshly cooked in a wall, or finding it cold.
Finding it cold, for sure. Yeah.
It raised some questions.
Now, I've been known to George Costanza a few things in my lifetime, okay? So,
I mean,
I'm just saying.
If it's on the top of the trash can, you're all good.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on. Let's see if we got let's give this game a rating.
No game is worthy until the dudes have spoken. It's time for the game rating.
All right. How you guys want to rate this game? Let's give this. Let's rate. Okay. Let's continue with the George Costanza theme. Let's give it a type of food that you would find in the trash and potentially eat.
All right.
It's a bit on the nose, but I mean, it's a bit specific. Not on the nose, but it's a bit specific. We're gonna do it anyways. I'll go first. I'm gonna go with just a regular old glazed donut. Not necessarily pretty to look at, but satisfying nonetheless. So that's what I'm going to give this one a glazed donut.
The problem with the glazed donut is it's going to be a little sticky. It's going to stick to some stuff that's underneath it.
That's true, but I think that also matches the game for me.
So
there's a few things that may be.
There's a few hairs on it.
Yeah, there may be a few hairs. There's a few hairs on this game.
Well, I'm going to go with a cookie because it's not going to be as sticky. So less hair.
What kind of cookie? Chocolate chip or?
Right, just chocolate chip.
Okay.
basic run-of-the-mill chocolate chip.
I'm going to go with a BLT because it's not the best thing to look at, but like it'll keep you going and it has some substance. But also, it's a BLT with like a weird sauce on it. It's like, okay, I don't know what this is and why did they add it, and like that's where like the mystery stuff like exits and all that stuff.
Okay, even more mysterious, did the sauce come from the trash can, or was it put on the sandwich to begin with? We don't know.
Interesting question, yeah. And also, to stretch the analogy, you could split a trash BLT with up to 4 friends. Or 3 friends and yourself.
Good point.
Oh, and even better question, who's throwing away a BLT?
I don't know. Someone a vegan?
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good
who
question.
Thought it stood for, I guess a vegan who thought the BLT stood for broccoli, lettuce, and tomatoes.
That would be disgusting.
BLT were a sandwich.
All right. Good job. Good job, boys. All right. Let's get some feedback.
It's time for D-Patter feedback, because when you're a D-Patter, you're a D-Patter for life.
Y'all sick of that song yet? Because I'm starting to get a little sick of it.
Honestly, I really hope someone just remixes that into a club song. Like, imagine you're in the club days after this pandemic, and like a beat drops with the Gauntlet II theme on it. Like, I mean,
I
go
bet
to the dance floor.
I bet it's been done. And we'll look it up.
I hope so. I really hope so.
All right, Justin, you got our feedback?
So did we ask for feedback? Because I didn't see it. I was trying to pull it up on Facebook earlier.
Yeah, we did. I asked for it. Guess when I asked for it? January 4th. So we're a little delayed on this one. I've got it though. I can run through it.
I'm sorry.
It's all right.
Yeah.
First bit of feedback comes from Jesse Cleva Vidal. Says, when is Turtles 3 coming out? Yeah. Adam Lund says. Adam Lund says those are my thoughts on this game too. Yeah.
All right.
And since then, we released the Turtles 3 episode, and everybody was happy. So, Nick Stevens asked, why wasn't Nick Stevens on the Little League Baseball show? Those are my thoughts on this game. We've been down that road. We've already explained that one away. It was because for time being, we didn't like Nick Stevens. So there you go. Aaron Hickman says, voices are cool, but Mindscape kind of bungled this port otherwise. Graphics are way worse than the first game. Music is almost non-existent, which is true to the arcade, and there's slowdown. At least the first game looked like Gauntlet, even if it was a light Gauntlet RPG. I definitely played it 4-player as a kid, though, which was decent fun, and I like the tag system. Overall, it's good. Just good. So, Aaron kind of mimics everything that we said about the game.
Yeah.
Gabe Van Gilder says, love this game. John Simmons says it's a little better than Gauntlet 1. Some would argue it's worse than I've seen some people argue that it's worse than Gauntlet 1. I would say it's kind of the same. It almost feels like the same to me. I think I've probably played Gauntlet 1 more, but that's neither here nor there. All right.
Is that it? Do we have a voicemail?
Actually, we do have voicemail. Real quick. Hold on. This is for Aiden. Hold on 1 second. I want to play this. Not exactly what you were looking for, but it's not exactly a banger. But you may be able to bounce a little bit to it. Here you go.
Oh, nice. This is everything I wanted in a music track.
Is this what you wanted?
This is everything I wanted. I think I've just, do we need to make new music after this? It's like the pinnacle of music. But I will have to set that as my ringtone.
So let me give this guy a shout out then. This is Fingers Music, spelled F1NG3RS Music. Could you have made that any harder, sir? Thank you for your remix, but that's complicated. But there you go. Fingers F1NG3RS.bandcamp.com. Wow, I didn't know we were going to be giving some random dude a shout out, but there you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Sometimes that happens. All right. That is almost the end. I got a voicemail. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Dudes, what is up? It is Jay-Z NES back again. I see you guys are playing Gauntlet II. That's one of my favorite NES games because of the 4-player function of it. So it's like one of the only good 4-score games out there, aside from like maybe Swords and Serpents. But anyway, it's totally worth having a 4-score over because it is so much fun to just play this game with your friends and just, there's so many memes that me and my friends have about this game. All the dialogue is hilarious. Like, wizard shot the food, and it's all like muffled and whatever. It's just great. All of it's just fun. It's just a fun top-down sort of game, going around shooting stuff, finding your way to the exit, and there's just so much fun to be had. We have this meme, Dooritis, which is like, because the doors are sometimes, or like little openings are sometimes hard to go through, so Dooritis is one of our funny Gauntlet 2 memes. But yeah, me and my friends used to play this game all the time. Such fun 4-player action there on the NES, and it's a great game, and I hope you guys liked it. So yeah, anyway, Gauntlet 2, one of my favorites. Such a fun game, great multiplayer game, and this has been Jay-Z NES, and you guys keep it classic, and I'll see you in the next podcast. Jay-Z out.
Thanks, Jay-Z. You say you see us on the next podcast. We've not received a voicemail from you in a while, Jay-Z. I'm starting to get a little worried.
Yeah, I know.
A little worried. But anyways, so that is pretty much it for the Gauntlet 2 episode. I was going to talk to Aiden a little bit more about his game. We did chat for a decent amount at the beginning when we were waiting on Justin to get his computer set up, so I may add that little bit of conversation to the end of this episode. After the next game's music, I may just add our conversation from before we started recording, Aiden, because I do have it recorded. If that's cool with you.
Fun.
And I guess I will caveat that with, we weren't necessarily trying to be family friendly the whole time. We may have said a word or two, but nothing serious, nothing too outlandish, I don't think. But I guess just
send me the clip before you edit it in to make sure I didn't say anything, because it's 5 a.m. here or 5:30. I'm not sure if I said anything super bad, but yeah.
I don't think we said. I'll listen to it and make sure, but I don't think we said anything outlandish. But so question, what made you think to make a game? Because that's something that I've always thought about doing, but then I thought, wow, that's probably too much work, so I never done it. But what was your motivation?
Well, so in Ireland, there's a year basically between the first chunk of secondary school and then the last chunk of secondary school. That's called transition year. It's an optional year in some schools, and it was optional for me. And we had an enterprise class. We'd have to set up a business, and I thought, hey, I like video games. I'll make a RPG about going through history and time travel RPG to teach first year's history. Worked on a really bad game engine. Just did not like it at all, and I thought, hey, you know what? After I released a demo, just was like, I'm not gonna work on this entire thing again. So I'll make a new game. Then I made Dodge, which is a top-down shooter with a tic-tac-toe grid. Or no, you basically dodge lasers in a tic-tac-toe grid. And after that, I was hooked, and I slowly made more projects until I made the Square game, which was about a year and a bit development time.
That's pretty fast, actually. That's a pretty good turnaround.
Thanks.
I'm impressed. So you made that game. sent us codes. I got to play it a little bit. I was telling you, like I said before the show, I don't have a PC anymore. All I got's a Mac, so I wasn't able to really dig in as much as I'd like to. But from what I played, it was cool. It kind of reminded me, like I said, we were talking before the show. It kind of reminded me a little bit of the Thomas Was Alone, kind of in graphical style in a way, and then kind of a little bit of I guess a little bit of Meat Boy, not too much. But it kind of in the same vein of like 2D and difficult. Yeah. There's a game that I played. I was trying to think of it, and I've not been able to think of it. But there's another game. It's kind of an older, like NES style game. I don't remember if it was actually for NES or not. But it was basically you have to traverse. It's a 2D platform where you traverse the level, and you're just trying to get to like an exit, and you can fall into it or. No, actually, it was not an NES game. I know exactly what it was. In Plus. I don't know if you ever played that one, the ninja game, where you're like a ninja. And you basically just... Yeah, so your game kind of reminds me of that one, too.
Actually, the weirdest game that I played Celeste on Christmas of 2019 when it threw for the Epic Store. And the game felt so similar to my game that I nearly like alt-tabbed out of it to go, okay, I need to change this level, and I realized I wasn't playing that game. It's not like a one-to-one, but it gives you like a similar feeling, in my opinion at least, to the movement of Celeste. Almost.
Yeah, if there was a genre, I guess I would agree. Yeah. That it's kind of in that same genre. So it's like that's the genre. It's the Meat Boys, Celeste, N Plus.
Hard 2D platformer.
Yeah. So that's the style game. I was impressed. I think it was cool. It was cool. Sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, another tangent. The game, since there's a gravity switch mechanic. Basically, if you touch an object, you flip upside down. It gets compared to VVVVV a lot, which I played after the game came out. I was told, it plays a lot of this, and then I finally played it. And I dislike that game so much because it's very similar to my game, but it's very different. So when I play it, it's not like, this is a new game with new experiences. It's like, no, you're not supposed to do this. But like, obviously, it's a really good game, and I'd recommend it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, VVVV. But yeah, it's really interesting to see how people would take the core concept of like platforming, have it feel similar, but tweak to like a few elements and make it feel drastically different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but no, it's cool to think. I mean, I remember you were like a listener of the show, way back.
I was
early on.
14, 15.
Yeah, so you're like 14, 15, and now you've made a game, and Nathan, you're on the show with us. So I think that's just cool.
Crazy, it's nuts. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've been doing this too long. Is what that tells me. So.
Yeah.
All right. Well, again, you can find Aiden's game on Steam. I think the last I saw it was like $1.99, so it's kind of like in the price range of like an iOS game or like an iPhone game or something. So that's it's not going to cost you an arm and a leg to try it out. And
also it's on sale frequently, so you might be able to pick it up for like 50 cents. So
yeah, and then it's totally worth giving it a shot. I will say, if you're like me and you're not very good at video games, it will probably frustrate you because it frustrated me. No offense to Aiden, but it did. I was talking to him before the podcast, and like I couldn't figure out the physics of the game. They were kind of throwing me for a loop because it doesn't really have like the. Well, you can explain better than I can, Aiden, but basically it almost doesn't have physics. It's like you stop, and
Yeah, so there's no acceleration or deceleration. The minute you hit the right, you go right 30 pixels a frame, almost. So the inspiration for that was the fact that I really couldn't program in acceleration or deceleration. Someone pointed out to me after the first showcase, and I'm like, oh yeah, sure, I'll try to do that. I spent an hour doing it. I was like, no, I'm not doing that. And it felt fine enough to me, but guess that was an issue then.
Yeah, it threw me for a little bit of a loop when I was trying to play it, but not necessarily a bad thing. It's just it's a design decision that you would get used to as you play the game, but I didn't really have time to get used to it, I guess.
Yeah, fair enough. Like a lot of the design decisions in the game was made because I'm not a great programmer. Like, for example, the gravity switching, you hit a block. It was really supposed to work like Mario Galaxy, but after you hit the block, I couldn't figure out how to unflip it, so I was like, sure, I'll throw in another block then, and it turned out fine.
Yeah. That's cool.
As a game developer, there's a saying, it's not a bug, it's a feature, which is commonly said.
Right. So I'll be curious. I'll be curious to see if you're going to continue to try to make games. I'll be curious to see what happens on your next one. As you've learned from making this one, what things you take from that.
I am working on another one at the moment, top-down platformer style almost. I've literally only worked on it for a few hours, but it looks like it's going to be my next big project. So hopefully in a year or so, I could be on this podcast talking about the next one. Who knows?
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right, well, we'll close this one out. I guess, I don't know if Justin's still there. He may have disappeared on us, but I will shout out the Bit Brothers Patreon. That's our Patreon. And that's patreon.com/bitbros if you want to donate to our show. That also, unfortunately, means you'll donate to the Genesis Gems, but, small price to pay. Shout out to the wee dude, Nico's 8-Bit Stereo on YouTube for the sweet stereoized versions of the NES tunes. Shout out to the Fox Dude for our Two Dudes logo. And if you want to chat with some like-minded individuals, go to Facebook, facebook.com/groups/bitbrothers. And you can, people who also listen to our show and Just Gems. Everybody's cool. They're all cool people on there. And get some good conversation can be had. We also have a website, bitbrosnetwork.com. Or maybe it's bitbrothersnetwork.com. I don't remember. You can call us 775-7-RETRO-1 or 775-773-8761. Jay-Z, we're waiting for the next round of calls. And as always, you can listen to us, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Anchor, wherever. We're on everything. Just look up Two Dudes and S. I'm sure I don't really know what Google does anymore. If you Google our name, I kind of quit doing that because I
googled it and I googled it like last year when I emailed you, and it sent me to the website. So
okay, cool. So that's all we can ask for. So there you go. Either Google Two Dudes and an S or Google Bit Brothers Network, and those things should direct you to whatever you need. All right. Well, thanks, Aiden. Appreciate you joining us. That was good. We had a good time.
Thanks for having me on.
And from Justin and myself, bye.
Bye. also a bit of bad news. I booted up my NES in February, and it finally died. Well, the machine itself works, but I had to replace the power cable, and then the power cable just kept on fizzing out. I'm like, all right, I'll get it reset at some point, or I'll buy another one at some point. Just never did. I looked up a few videos about Gauntlet II, though.
That's okay. I'm sure you've played it plenty in the past, so we should be good.
Oh yeah. Have you heard of the FC Mobile 2?
I don't think so.
Alright, so I got that when I was 9 or 10. Basically, it's a NES console, but it's portable.
Oh. Yeah, that's cool. So it's like a little Game Boy almost.
Yeah, almost, but it's about like this big. It's rather cool. Yeah, I got that because I grew up on the NES. Basically, I'm 20 at the moment, but like when I was younger, in 20, older than me, we got them hand me down, so I got them. Then probably one of the most dumb blunders I ever made was I sold or I traded in all of like my old hardware to get like Super Mario Galaxy, Melee, and another game that I can't remember. And then eventually I rebought all the collections.
Yeah, we've all done that. We've all been there.
Yeah, that we have. Just wondering, how far did you get into it?
Not super far. So I don't readily have access to a Windows computer. So I don't really have a really good way of playing it. But I played it on a buddy's computer for a little while. It's pretty. It's cool. It reminds me of. It's kind of like a cross between. It's kind of got a little Meat Boy vibe, maybe a little. I can't think of the name of the game. The blockiness of it reminds me of that. Was it something about Thomas or something? You know what game I'm talking about?
Thomas was alone. Yeah. I was actually inspired by 2 games, and you probably never guess what the 2 games are.
Actually, I think you told me one of them. I don't remember what it was, but
Super Mario Galaxy and Donkey Kong Country Returns.
Okay. I'll save some of this talk for the actual podcast. I don't want to burn all our good conversation prior to getting started.
Do you know if Justin got far in it?
I don't.
All right.
We can ask him when he gets on.
All right.
It was pretty tough. I don't know if the little bit that I played, the physics, I don't know. I didn't quite get the hang of it. Not that it's
I get you.
Yeah, it was just a little different. Not necessarily what I was expecting, I don't think.
So basically what happened was normally with platformers you have acceleration and deceleration. I just could not program that in, so it's just like stop and start, which I think added to the feel.
Yeah, that kind of threw me a little bit, It's just like I was expecting a little bit of again, we'll talk about this on the show, but I was expecting, some some sliding around and stuff, and it didn't happen, Yeah.
If anyone asks, I'm just gonna say it's my absolute hatred of ice levels. So I just took out all of the sliding.
I missed that. You cut out for just a second.
So actually, one second, I'll move my mic a bit closer. Basically, I hate them so much that I overcorrected, and there's no deceleration. You just stop immediately.
Yeah. Okay, that works. Still cool. That still cool that making a game. I'm sure that's pretty difficult. So it's beyond me. I've never tried. So
I would recommend trying. There is a learning curve, but literally my first game I made called Dodge. Kind of a prequel. I just reused the same story for all my games. Mm-hmm. But basically, I just followed a programming tutorial, and I thought, hey, wouldn't it be cool if instead of shooting at enemies, the enemies shoot at you and you moved, and just botched my way through coding it. But yeah, it's fun if you ever have the time.
Yeah, maybe one day at a time. Time is a precious resource now. I got to either choose trying to make a game or playing a game, Yeah,
that's fair. I've noticed you have guitars behind you.
Yeah, got a bunch.
Nice. Actually, I built a Jazz Master from a kit a few months ago.
Oh, yeah? That's cool.
Yeah.
I've not.
Effect up the tone knob. Sorry.
I said I've never built one. I've modified some here and there. Like I put some EMG active pickups in a Fender Strat.
Oh, cool.
Make it a little more. I love the feel of the Strat, but I need a little bit more metal sound. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I get you. Basically, like all the building was just screwing in the neck to the body, which I screwed up like 5 times, which was impressive. And then just screwing in everything. The electrical work wasn't too bad, but yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah, nice. So, what kind of music do you like to play?
Let's see. Haven't been playing much. Do you like rock? Do you know Undertale?
Undertale, yeah.
Yeah, I can play like the start, like the opening track of that. Let's see what else. Pop music, I guess. I haven't played it in ages. I really need to.
Yeah, that's another one of those things, right? You gotta have time. There's only so much time in the day.
Yeah.
You gotta make time for. It's kind of gotta prioritize, you know.
Oh man, porting to a console. That's something I'd like to do with my next game. But yeah.
Yeah,
really, I've heard it's really difficult.
I bet it is. You gotta have a dev kit and all that kind of stuff. I will.
Oh, the dev kit's on the issue. Just like.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess you'd have to have like an engine or something that worked on the system, right?
That is like most of the major engines now work with all the systems. The main issue is I can't remember the term for it, but basically you have to jump through all these console notifications. Basically, you have to jump through all these hoops where you have to get everything working correctly. And basically, like you have to X, and then the HUD can't be within 10% of the outer frame, and all these like really specific things. So it's a pain to get everything in console certification.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of QA type stuff you gotta do, right?
Yeah, definitely QA. You don't want like porting to multiple platforms is not fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And doing that as a solo act, it just sounds like a nightmare.
Can't think like literally with QA, it's great because I can go, okay, I'm testing my game when I take a break from programming because the fact it's not fun. Hey, it's fun, but it takes a lot out of you. So you just like play the game for a bit. It's like, all right, I need to fix this, and this. 5 minutes, and then you can get back into it.
Yeah, that makes sense. So the QA is actually kind of taking a break from the actual work.
It's change of pace. So like, you can like find bugs. It's something to switch up the development. Like for example, if let's say I was working on a really annoying level bit, I could go, right, I might do art or programming or QA. It's just a fun way to just use a different part of your brain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. Also, do you want to see something really cool?
Yeah, I always do.
So there is a charity shop, or not charity shop, a thrift store in the city next, or about 20-minute drive from me, and they had sealed Nintendo playing cards from the 70s.
That's cool.
Yeah, from Japan Airlines. I don't think you can see it here.
I kind of can, yeah.
Yeah. I cannot wait to open them for a special occasion. Just like unwrap that, because I mean, why not?
Yeah.
Just have every collector just like die inside when they see me open it.
Yeah, that's cool. That's definitely a bit of history.
Yeah, it is.
I guess they were doing that. They were doing that before they made the system, but they were also weren't they? I mean, some of those cards, maybe not the ones you got, but some of those playing cards things are really old, like from even before the 70s, I think.
Yeah. So, was listening to an audiobook. So Nintendo was set up in 1889, and they made Hanafuda cards, which were flower cards to get around Japan's gambling. So they're not playing cards; they're just picture cards. But you could use them as playing cards.
Ah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's a tricky, sneaky Nintendo, right?
Very tricky Nintendo. Things really don't change. And then they basically went on to, and then in the late 60s to early 70s, they made a bunch of electronic games, and then they made systems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Justin, what happens is we record like we try to record maybe every couple weeks, but it usually ends up being maybe once a month. And so when that month hits, all these like Discord and the computer itself and this recording software that I use, all these things all of a sudden need updates. And so we end up 15, 20 minutes of updates if we don't think to do it before the podcast.
Yeah, I haven't used this laptop since I got my new computer a few months ago, so I turned it on, had to log into everything. It was a pain.
Yeah, but you were smart and you did it well before time to podcast. Justin,
I mean, to be fair, I had time to kill.
Yeah, that's true.
So how many games you guys you've been playing?
So unfortunately, if you've been listening to the podcast, you probably know I've been trying to pass this professional engineering exam, and so I still haven't passed it. So I'm still studying to try to pass it. So games have been pretty barren, and except for games, mostly just been the games for the podcast. I picked up Fire Emblem Three Houses and started playing it, but it's been so few and far between when I get a chance to play it that I'm not very far. It's still kind of at the beginning of the game. Yeah, but it's fun. I like it. I always like the Fire Emblem games.
Oh, Fire Emblem. It's not my type of game. I've listened to a bit of the podcast. I was like, all right, I'll listen to the last episode, and then I listened to Yoshi's Cookie one. Took me like 20 minutes into the podcast to realize you weren't talking about Yoshi, the one where you like move around the what's it called, like the trays and mash like the egg one. But yeah, what type of engineering?
Civil, geotechnical, actually, nice. To be more specific.
Oh. So well, I did applied maths. Oh, sorry.
Applied math? That's what you said?
Yeah, so it's basically maths with a bunch of physics that would be used for engineering, and it was rather difficult. So good luck with it.
Yeah. Well, so I've passed. I've graduated. I have a degree, but after in America, after you get your degree, you have to work for like 4 years, and then you can get a license. But before you get the license, you have to take like this big exam.
Yeah.
And so that's where I'm at right now.
Good luck with it.
Trying to get that license. Thanks. Yeah, I do geotechnical engineering, so it's like subsurface exploration type stuff, like drilling into the ground and checking the soil, that sort of thing, before they put a building on it.
Yeah, that's important. Don't have like another Leaning Tower of Pisa.
No, or I don't know if you heard about what happened in Miami, Florida. They had a building collapse like about a month ago or a couple weeks ago.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, so don't want those things to happen. Not that it was the engineering fault or anything, but yeah, the Leaning Tower piece is pretty fun and pretty interesting. That's one of the things that they, really teach in the geotechnical engineering classes because it's like a differential settlement of the soil underneath.
Yeah.
So it's like that's a hot topic for us geotechnical engineers,
I could imagine, yeah.
We love that Leaning Tower of Pisa. I've never seen it in person, though. I'd like to visit it one day. You've refreshed my memory because I played it. When I played it, it was back when you first sent me the code, so it's been a bit.
So the start of it's basically you move from the right to the left. You don't have the jump, and then you move, and then there's a level where you just vertically decline, and then there's a level where you get chased by a red bar. And then after that, there is a gravity level where if you touch a purple block, you switch gravity up, and if you touch a green block, it switch gravity down.
Yeah, I made it there.
All right, did you fight the first boss? Basically, guy chases you on the exact line.
No, I didn't make it. I didn't make it to him. I think the gravity level is about as far as I made it, if I recall.
Yeah, it's a tough one, though. It's a tough level.
Yeah. It's not really an easy game. You have made a tricky one. And considering I didn't have the time to play on my own computer and stuff. I didn't really get good at it.
Yeah, well, since I was a one-man operation, I thought, hey, make the levels hard, so instead of it taking 2 minutes to beat a level, it'll take 10 minutes to beat a level.
Yeah, you can pad the game a little bit, right?
Yeah, exactly. You would absolutely hate the fourth world. Basically, I had a rule, don't design like an asshole. If someone dies 5 times in a row on an object, change that a bit. So I did that, and then on the fourth world, I thought, hey, you know what? How about I just don't do that? And it's probably the hardest level in the game by far.
So you went back and said, well, actually, on this level, I think I am going to be an asshole.
Yeah, the entire, all 7 levels of it, I thought, I'm just going to be like a massive ass. But yeah.
That's very kind of you.
Oh, no problem. But yeah. The one thing I'm annoyed about is I made 3 worlds, released it in February last year, and then I made the 4th world during lockdowns, and I just did not have the motivation to start another project. I just didn't have any player feedback, so there'd be some areas where I'd see, let's say, a live streamer play it, and it's like, should have fixed that.
Yeah. So do you get? Can you get what I don't know what the word is, like the metrics from the players as they play it? Like, do you get that kind of feedback, or are you getting asking for feedback, getting comments, that sort of thing?
Showcased my game at a good few events. I'd be over the shoulder of people playing it, and then I saw 2 Twitch streamers, but I wouldn't get any metadata from it.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I was curious about.
Okay. Would have programmed that in. Basically, if you died, it would tell the player's XY position, but that would have been so much effort for that, and maybe for a bigger project that was ongoing in development, I might have done that, or early access, but not for this game. That would have just been a pain.
Maybe for the next game.
Maybe.
Do we have Justin?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Hey, sorry about that. My computer is just on its last leg, to be honest.
That's okay.
Same. I had to dig up my laptop, which is far beyond its last legs. It took me 2 hours to reboot it and just sign into everything.
Aiden on there, as opposed to us, did it much sooner than we did. We did, we just like to do it right as soon as 10:39 our time.
Do it live.
10:29. We'll do our updates live.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get rolling.
We can pretty much just hit the ground rolling. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we'll take everybody just be quiet for a second, and I'll bring us in with intro music. Sound good?